Welcome po ulit dito sa malalim o mahirap na usapan ng which is the greatest commandment. So sana po medyo lumiwanag o lumabo ang love of God. Pero punta muna tayo dun sa ikalawang bahagi naman ngayon, the second greatest commandment, which is love of neighbor. May kaibigan po ako, ang pastime niya, basta't merong extrang pera, extrang pagkain, gagawin po niya ay magpupunta dun sa mga taong tumitira sa ilalim ng tulay. Mm-hmm. Kahit sa Angeles lang, yung tulay malapit sa Pampang Market. Pag duman po kayo doon, tingin kayo dun sa bandang kaliwa. Makita niyo, mga pamilyang nakatira sa sakong bubong, mga maliliit na puno na parang yun ang poste ng bahay nila, living under the bridge. So itong pinupuntahan niya at binibigyan niya kahit na ano. Yeah. Love of neighbor. Ito po ay napakadali, napakakonkreto. Napakaraming mga organisasyon ngayon, mga movement, mga NGO, all focusing on helping other people. Palagi ko walang, no?
Palagi ko obvious naman kung bakit Kasi, hindi ba, kahit naman tayo, naniniwala tayo sa Bible na ang Diyos nilikha ang tao sa kanyang sariling hugis at wangis. So, okay, gumagawa tayo ng images of God, but we sometimes forget that the best image of God is our fellow human being.
Yan.
Kaya nga dun sa kanta ni Lea Salonga, to love another person is to see the face of God.
Wow.
So, kaya, di ba, si Saint John, parang ang tutol nga niya, dun galing, by the way, yung Deus Caritas Est ni Pope Benedict XVI. Yung, alam niyo po, yung kauna-unahang encyclical na sinulat ng ating Santo Papa Benedict XVI, ay galing sa first letter of John, chapter 4. Ang sabi niya, Beloved, let us love one another, because love is of God. Everyone who loves is begotten by God and knows God. Whoever is without love does not know God, because God is love. Deus Caritas Est. Tapos sabi pa niya dito, if God so loved us, we must also love one another. Tapos ang sabi niya, paano nga ba yung sabi niya, if anyone says I love God but hates his neighbor, he is a liar.
Liar, yeah.
Kung sinasabi ko daw na mahal ko ang Diyos, pero kinamumuhian ko ang kapwa ko, ako daw ay sinungaling. For whoever does not love a neighbor whom he has seen, cannot love God whom he has not seen. Sabi niya. So this is the commandment we have from him. Whoever must love God must also love his neighbor.
Okay yung mga yung understanding. Again, parang nagde-devil's advocate ako from the perspective of I met many people. Sa trabaho ko po kasi sa SACO, sa NGO world, sa development
SACO po ay Social Action Center, Pampanga.
Yes, Social Action Center. It's some kind of a Caritas. It's the Caritas of our diocese, where we do a lot of charitable works for our neighbor, regardless of religion, color, or race, or political affiliation. It's really pure love for neighbor. And along this many years I've worked here, I met a lot of people locally, and sometimes I notice a lot of people travel from Europe, the other side of the world, to go to our poor slum areas, to our mountains, to our farmers, to live with them, to help them. But I notice when sometimes we talk about religiosity, or sometimes magmisa ako, I notice they don't even know how to make the sign of the cross, or sometimes they are not even Christians or Catholics. But when we talk about our love for the Aitas, the indigenous people, our love for the trees and ecology, taking care of our not only our neighbor,
mas madaling magkaisa.
Our rivers, nung may problema sa pollution and so on. Parang nagkakaintindi kami, nagko-connect. But I don't always presume that that is your expression of your love of God. I don't even dare to ask. But it was clear for me, they're willing to give themselves concretely. These are young people. They don't even have any religious signs in their bodies. Wala makitang religion. But you see, it's very concrete and given to them. However, gusto ko rin kumpara some kind of a critic to my own experience in our own religiosity. Kami kasi sa ministry on service, we always give this Kayagape seminar on servant leadership. Sabi ko sa sarili ko, why tayong nasa simbahan? Why do we have to convince ourselves that we have to love our neighbor. Kasi given na yung love of God sa lahat ng mga nagsisimba. Napaka-clear. They love God, they raise their hands, they praise the Lord, they pray, they kneel down, they very religious. But to ask them about your business is killing the river or you're abusing your workers, it's something that they cannot connect. Yun yung tinatanong ko sa sarili ko. Para bang, ano ba to? Parang mahirap bang pagsamahin to? Kasi, yun yung tinatanong ko, we do not always assume that it's always automatic. Diba? There are people who take their love of God in a vacuum. It stands alone. Nakikita natin yan. Ang daming mga natataong simbahan, ang dami nilang kaaway. Ang daming sabi Father, paano po ako magsisimba? Yung tita ko, kaaway kami, pero araw-araw nasa simbahan. It becomes the antithesis to the very simple understanding of the young people about faith in God.
Yes.
Kikisama sa tao. Maghanap ka ng tao kung minsan mahirap makisama sa tao. Minsan, pari mismo. Kaya, tao simbahan na active. And then, yung mga ordinaryong tao, even, I'm not propagating or glorifying them. If they find it, that the basic love of God is also, I don't know if that is their religion, but para bang, yun lang.
Ako ang tugon ko doon, kung minsan ang problema, we use love of God as an excuse for loving neighbor. It should not be. I think it should be an expression. Like the loving of neighbor is the expression of our love of God and vice versa, not the excuse. Kung minsan ang nangyayari sa iba, ginagawa nilang excuse not to do the other one.
Correct.
Na para bang mahal ko na ang kapwa ko, that's all that matters. Yung sinasabi kanina ni Amundeo reminded me of yung the other version of this passage. Remember in Luke chapter 15, the same question was posed. Tapos, nag-follow up pa yung lawyer. Ang sabi niya, but who is my neighbor? Sino ang aking kapwa? Di ba, parating napipika na si Jesus pag gano'n na ang dating ng tanong. Kailangan mo pa bang itanong yan?
Kailangan pa bang i-memorize yan?
Kailangan pa bang i-memorize yan? How could you not know your neighbor? Nakikita mo yan. Yung gano'n, ba? Kaya may punto talaga yung first letter of John, Para bang kaya mong mahalin yung hindi mo nakikita? Yung nakikita mo, hindi mo, parang ini-snub mo, hindi mo pinapansin, sabi niya gano'n. Parang ang hirap yatang spellingin nun. How they go together, yung what you call your love of God and the absence of love of neighbor. It immediately cancels out the validity of your love for God. Talagang napaka-obvious talaga na ang daling mag-conclude na kapag walang love of neighbor, imposibleng may love of God.
Correct.
That your love of God cannot possibly be valid without the other. Hindi ba?
Or it's also very difficult to always conclude na love of neighbor would always automatically result to love of God. Yun ba yun?
Right.
Tama ba yun? I don't know.
On the other hand, yun yung sinasabi mo kanina, di ba? Parang it's not an excuse. Na para bang because I love my neighbor, I already love God. Di ba?
Or because I love God,
parang hindi sila exclusive sa bawat isa. Ano nga kasi yung naisip ko kanina, yung it could be possible kasi na yung love of God and love of neighbor, parang nakita ko minsan, nung college ako, panahon pa nun nung medyo difficulty crisis, transition Marcos and Cory Aquino, Ninoy Aquino assassination. And then may kaklase akong nag-aaral sa Manila. It so happened, nasa seminaryo, sabi niya, hindi na ako nagsisimba. I'd rather go to these movements. Parang gusto niya pumunta sa sa lumaban, sa bundok, ganun. And he's willing to die for the cause. College kami. And then he told me that he does not adhere to formal religious expressions anymore. Magkasama kami ng Knights of the Altar dati. And then I just thought of our own seminary formation. Hindi naman ako nagsalita. And then I told, kahit na parang sabihin niya parang wala namang Diyos. The mere fact he believed in equality, the mere fact he talked about the poor, and is willing to die for the cause. I think that is the act of believing and giving self to an ultimate value. Hindi ko sinabi yun yung Diyos niya, no? Pero I think he makes sense too.
Alam mo, ito na nga yung ito yung dahilan kung bakit ako mismo parang tuwan-tuwa na si Pope Benedict at the start of his papacy, ang kanyang introduction, napaka-basic.
Yes.
God is love. Deus Caritas Est, di ba? Parang ano kagad to paalala kagad sa atin na without love, we cannot claim to have God.
Yes, correct.
And we should not forget that we Christians or we believers don't have a monopoly of love.
Yeah.
Di ba? So, what if you see a person who is loving, who knows how to love unconditionally his fellow human beings, pero hindi siya Kristiyano? Can you just immediately presuppose na walang kaligtasan noon? Di ba? So, parang ito yung paalala din sa atin na to be to be careful also about making a judgment about the salvation of the others who may not be members of our church, di ba?
Yes.
Siguro parang ganito lang, just to before we end po ang gap na ito, siguro ang pag-ibig natin sa Diyos ang siyang dapat magtulak sa atin para mahalin ang kapwa. At ang pagmamahal sa kapwa ay siyang nagbibigay ng konkretong karanasan sa atin sa pag-ibig ng Diyos. And so the greatest of all is love. Babalik po kami.